Asket's Explanations Part 4. Translation Explanation of September 10th, 1964, Marauli, India. Continued.
My head was full to the brim from all of Asket's explanations. So I followed her wordlessly to the ship, and together with her, let myself be carried into the ship by the invisible transportation powers. I lay awake for a long time on my comfortable couch and contemplated what I had heard. Everything seemed monstrous to me, and finally I had to forcefully tear myself loose from my raging thoughts in order to still get any sleep at all. Still somewhat tired, I awoke in the early morning. It was, to me, as if I had heard a shot somewhere. Asket also immediately got up from the couch and quickly approached me at one of the ship's windows. Some 20 meters away from the ship stood a man who, leaning on his rifle, grinned up at us. Quite obviously he had fired a shot in order to cause us to notice him. It was, without doubt, the same man whom we had met at night some days ago far from the ship. Wordlessly, we let ourselves be carried out of the ship and went to the man who, grinning, slowly came to meet us. He spontaneously reached out his right hand to us and laughed. Asket's explanation of February 8, 1953, verbatim reproduction of Asket's statements through her memory aid on the 10th of September 1964 in Marauli, India.
That is really a surprise. What in the world? Come and let me greet you two. That is really a surprise. I should have thought of that right away, because how would it otherwise have been possible to find you two so sympathetic when you visited me at my camp? That is really a surprise. I am Iljich Ustinov, but simply call me Jitchi. That is a surprise.
He vigorously shook Asket's hand and then mine.
This surprise was, however, not foreseen.
I believe that is really a surprise. Indeed, I actually did not want to come here. But I was impelled by something to stumble around here in the area, and then I saw this thing there. At first I believed that everything was only an hallucination. So I came closer and found that I had in no way gone mad. I have indeed already seen and experienced very many things, yet up until now, not this here. But I will not let myself be made insane because of it, because I have already heard of such things over in America and also in other places. Where do you come from then? Perhaps from Venus or from Mars? Man alive, what a surprise!
Explanation of August 28, 1975, Hinwil, Switzerland. In the reports written down with Asket's help in India in the year 1964, I used for my person my real name, Edward. In the contact reports with Sim Yase, which have continued since the 28th of January 1975, I use only a cross in place of my name. I did this for reasons of personal safety. As these security restrictions have become invalid as a result of the determination and the new contact with Asket, according to her direction, in the future, I should again let my real name and the name Billy come into use, and let the name Phantom lapse into the past. As in the contact reports and so forth with Asket, my real name should in the future also replace the cross in the Sim Yase reports. Explanation of October 1st, 2000. With the production of the Sim Yase contact books, the names Billy and Edward are used from the beginning, in accordance with the explanation of August 28, 1975.
I am neither from Venus nor Mars. I am a human of this world like you.
But that cannot be. The crate there is indeed a spaceship.
That is accurate in relation to the ship and with me too. But my friend here is really from this world.
Aha, then you are therefore a contactee, as one says?
Does one say that?
Yes, that is already known far and wide.
Unfortunately, I am not familiar with this story.
Somewhat reflectively,
This meeting was really not foreseen. What should happen now?
I also do not know. What do you think, Jitchi?
Do you perhaps want to get rid of me?
Nobody has spoken about that. But your sudden appearance makes everything a bit of a problem.
I am sorry about that. I really did not want to meddle in the work of God's angels.
What is this insane utterance supposed to mean?
It is indeed known that you are somewhat like angels and come here on a mission from God.
Who says that?
I have heard that from various sources, and I am happy that I have met you. Believe me, I am a good Christian and very devout, even if I am a roughneck and walk around here armed. Here, I even always carry a small Bible with me.
Unfortunately, I have to disappoint you. I am neither an angel nor do I come on a mission from God. These stories about us are deliberate misdirections by evil elements who want to conjure up malevolent things in a religious form. If you are a religious believer, then you have succumbed to evil, false teachings.
You blaspheme God. That is indeed monstrous.
That is really not the case, because you are the one who has been misled by religion.
I do not understand that.
You will understand it if I explain it all to you. On the other hand, I have arrived at a decision. Because if you want, you can come with my friend and me. Then you will soon understand everything.
Am I suppose, supposed to get into this ship?
Are you frightened?
If I am to be honest, yes.
What of then?
It is so outlandish to me, and in spite of everything, I love my life.
But you said you are a good Christian. Then do Christians have a fear of death?
You ask funny questions. Every human does indeed fear death, ye. Besides, I find that I am not yet mature enough to actually go to heaven. Indeed, Jesus said,
That is precisely what he did not even say. It is all a deliberately falsified tradition. Besides, the man never bore the name Jesus. He was plainly and simply called Emmanuel.
I find your behavior also not exactly correct and courageous. And besides, I believe I know that you are basically wrongly orientated in regard to heaven.
Do you think so? You two have somewhat peculiar views. I trust in God and Jesus Christ.
If you trust in them, then indeed you do not need to be afraid of the spaceship. Is it rather not the case that your beloved Christian religion leaves you in doubt?
I am devout and not in doubt.
That appears to me to be exactly the case, if I reflect on everything. Here you have to make your own decision, because dear God and Jesus Christ, who you can simply load off on and burden with your responsibility, are not here. It is unfortunately the case with the believers that they always shift their own responsibility onto a saint or onto dear God because they are not able to bear their own responsibility. Therefore, they also cannot make any of their own decisions and conclusions which are really important for them. Do you want to assert something else, and do you belong to this sort of believer?
That is a true word.
It is really funny. You speak quite damned hard to me, and in spite of that I feel a sympathy with you. What is that about?
It is his honesty and the truth of his words, which are unconsciously clear to you as the truth.
Yes, it could indeed be so, because somehow I am, in spite of all the belief, always in doubt if I am to be really honest.
Asket here has made you a proposition. She is my friend, and I am, by the way, Edward. For once, just let your doubt be doubt and your belief simply a belief. Come with us into the ship and let yourself be surprised. Or do you believe that we ourselves would sit in a crate and zoom through the region with it if the thing would fly apart at any moment?
Certainly not, but in spite of that I am afraid.
That's just unbelievable. This fellow is now already almost 50 years old and quivers like an aspen leaf, only because he should stand his ground for once.
I am almost 50, but I cannot help it if I am simply afraid.
Then you are just a damned coward. Come, Asket, we will go our way and let him simply stagnate here.
Having become angry, I grasped Asket by the hand and simply pulled her with me towards the beam ship. We had only walked a few meters when Jitchi's voice called us back.
Please do wait.
Now what do you want? We still have all sorts of things planned and we cannot concern ourselves with your fear.
Please do not be so bitter. Indeed, consider that until now I have never seen such a ship. To say nothing of the fact that someone wants to take me along in such a device.
It was also once the first time for me, and I did not act like such a stupid pig.
You are really quite hard-bitten, and for your age, obviously quite a damned character.
Just listen to this snout. Here is this fellow, an innocently trusting son of Christ and a Bible twerp, and suddenly he can swear like a stevedore. Signs and wonders actually still occur, even if they do not come from dear God.
Whispering quietly.
You really have a remarkable way of dealing with humans, but obviously this way is very effective. I also want to learn this.
What are you whispering, eh?
We were just discussing whether we should shoot you off to the moon.
You lie, you damn so-and-so.
Precisely, yet apparently you have changed your mind.
I have pondered over your words. Perhaps you really are correct with them. Therefore I will come with you even if I might fill my trousers.
Then I will throw you out of the crate. Yet it will surely not be so bad, or...
Now please leave him alone. Your teaching was effective enough.
I believe that too. You really have a very kind way of convincing someone of something better.
Do I have that?
Now please come and leave the skirmish.
We then went to the ship together and then pushed Jitchi forward towards the transport beam, in order to get him into the ship. Grasped by the power, he was lifted from the ground and slowly glided upward. Quite suddenly his eyes widened unnaturally, and then a shrill scream tore the stillness. Once Asket and I were likewise in the ship, I saw how Jitchi, pale with terror, sat in an armchair, and completely dumbfounded, stared at the entrance shaft. Several minutes passed until he finally calmed down again, while Asket patiently enlightened him. Once Jitchi had finally calmed down, he remembered that he still had all his baggage at his camping place. So he let himself glide out of the ship and went away again in order to get his things. It took more than an hour before he finally came back again. Along with his baggage, he also had in his hand a small electric energizer for a cattle fence. In reply to a question regarding the purpose of the device, he said that he always stretched a wire around his camp at night and then electrified it with the battery device. So he is fairly safe.
To begin with, we will now jump back into the 13th century.
What was that again?
Naturally, we have indeed not yet made the effort to explain our plans to you more closely. During the next few months, we want to undertake several trips into the past and into the future in order to experience firsthand or to observe certain events then and there.
Huh? Have I? Have I gotten in here with two lunatics? What is this damn nonsense supposed to mean?
Asket long-windedly explained our plans to him.
Under no circumstances will I do that with you. That is indeed insane and additionally also impossible.
Damned coward.
Eh?
Dirty damned coward.
Eh? No, I said I would go with you. Okay then, may God help me.
God helps those who help themselves.
Perhaps you are right. You two talk with such conviction about all these things that I really am slowly starting to doubt the correctness of my faith.
Let us leave that now. As the most important factor, I still have one matter for you, however, Jitchi, and it is this. If you come with us now and experience various events of the past which are not in agreement with the traditions with which you are acquainted, then I must oblige you to be silent about them. And you must indeed be silent about everything, also about the fact that you have ever seen us. An extraordinary amount depends on your silence, as it concerns itself with the continued existence of terrestrial humanity and the entire system of planets.
You indeed cannot be serious. Why should I be silent then? I can indeed sell the story to the newspapers and finally live in joy and without worry and far away from all the insane humans. Edward, is that really your Christian way of thinking? Why should it not be because I must indeed live from something? And just such a story indeed contains within itself many possibilities for earning.
Then you cannot stay with us, because you would only be permitted to speak about it if you knew that you must end your life in a very short time.
Is my silence so important then?
More than only that, perhaps the existence of terrestrial humanity depends on it and the further survival of the system of planets.
I could not load this burden upon myself. I will be silent about everything and as mute as a fish. That is my sacred promise.
Your word is of value?
On my own life.
Then we can start. First, we will fly out to a great height, in order to, from there, effect a transmission into the past.
And already the ship took off and shot ragingly fast into the sky, out of the Earth's atmosphere, ever higher up into open space, where suddenly a multitude of stars sparkled. I saw Jitchi, who had become as pale as chalk, and grasped for a vessel in his pack, into which he surrendered himself to coughing up. Obviously it was all too much for him. Already Asket's voice could also be heard again.
We will be that far along in a moment. The transmission takes only a split second.
Asket busied herself with her apparatuses, and quite suddenly I seemed for a split second to no longer physically exist. I suddenly seemed to have been simply extinguished corporally. But then already Asket's voice rang out again.
We are presently in the past of the 13th century. Here, Edward, take this device and fasten it onto your belt.
What is that?
A language converter.
I quickly made an effort to fasten the thing on, and observed thereby how Asket opened the exit shaft and glided out. Jitchi immediately followed her with the vessel. He was still as white as chalk, and appeared to have not yet gotten a grip on himself. I myself had to apply some effort to fasten the device onto my belt, and then I let myself likewise glide out of the shaft. Emerging beneath the ship, I saw how Jitchi straightway let his vessel fall into a bush in the forest about 50 meters away, and then sat in the grass. The world was not different from the way I had known it until then. The grass was green, the fir trees as familiar as ever, and even the flowers in the grass were not foreign to me. But what struck me was the horrendous twittering of the birds. There had to have been masses of them there, completely undisturbed, and quite obviously not yet impaired by poisons and so forth, as they are in my actual present time. As I inhaled the fresh, spicy air, I noticed that it was much fresher than in the year 1953. The oxygen content seemed to be much higher. Also, the sky appeared quite fantastic to me. It was of such a beautiful and deep azure blue as I had never before seen. Quite obviously, air pollution did not yet rule here in this century. The sun shone clear and splendidly warm from the sky, and for kilometers around there were only woods, hills, and meadows in lush green to be seen. Far and wide, no village, no town, and no house was to be seen. It was really lonesome and beautiful, as in paradise itself. Over in a somewhat more distant forest, an entire herd of deer fed peacefully, which took no notice at all of our presence. Obviously, these animals were not yet so very shy as in the year 1953. And these pheasants, everywhere one saw pheasants.
You observe very much and very precisely.
It is simply magnificent here, Asket.
That is a true word. The past is, in many concerns, better than your present. But now come. There, behind those woods, is a hunter's cabin, as you would say, or a weekend house. I already know it because I have already been there twice. It belongs to a rabbi named Jecieli, who enjoys the open countryside now and then.
Where are we then, actually?
Do you mean the time and the place?
Yes.
We are here in the 13th century in France. It is presently the time of the reign of Saint Ludwig.
That is all Greek to me because I am still as bad as possible with the history of this time.
That is indeed also not of great significance. Come. We are going now.
We went over to the forest where Jitchi then got to his feet and joined us.
I am no longer astonished about anything, and I am also free of fear now. I was actually quite stupid. Where are we now?
Jitchi had quite obviously gotten a grip on himself again, and his face had returned to its normal color again, too. Asket briefly explained the circumstances to him, and admirably, he now suddenly came to terms with that.
It is simply fantastic. I have still not yet seen 50 springs, and suddenly I am 600 years younger.
Your calculation is not exactly correct, but you could also say it like that.
Then we walked wordlessly through the forest on a path made by game, which, already after less than 15 minutes, led to a log hut on the other side of the forest.
That is Rabbi Jecieli's little recreation house. Generally, he is called a scientist, wizard, and magician, the latter certainly being incorrect.
There was an enclosure behind the house and there was a horse in it. It was apparently the means of transportation for the rabbi who, according to that, must have therefore been there. And he actually was there. Somewhere in the house a dog was whipped up, and then a bearded man stepped into the doorway and looked out. In a few moments he discovered us, held his hand above his eyes, and then stepped quickly towards us.
So there you are again. It has been years since the last time you were here. But who are these two men?
Friends of mine. They are from a distant land which you do not know.
Do they come from the stars as do you?
No, They are from this world, from yours, but from very far in the future.
You told me about that once. But what does the man have here on his belt?
Jackie pointed to my appended torch.
That is an electric pocket lamp with batteries.
That is unknown to me. What is its purpose? Unfortunately, I cannot acquaint myself with things like that because your friend does not want to take me with her.
But you certainly do know what a lamp is. Indeed, in your time you also have things like this in order to make light. But to my knowledge you use tallow, candles or oil and so forth for that.
So that is therefore a lamp? But where does one light it?
Here, see. You do not have to ignite this torch with fire, rather only with this small switch here. It has neither tallow nor oil nor a candle. It burns with electrical energy, which I, however, cannot more closely explain to you, because I do not know very much about these things.
That is incomprehensible to me.
Just leave that, Edward. I understand quite a lot about electricity and will explain everything to him later.
Thank you. That takes a problem away from me. See here, Yechieli, you can keep this torch. Here you also still have 4 replacement batteries for it. Let Jitchi explain the entire secret to you.
But I cannot accept that. Indeed, that is certainly very, very valuable.
Laughing.
Stop it! Just take the lamp, because for us these things are quite cheap and can be had in great quantities.
Jackie gratefully accepted the lamp and marveled at it at length. Then, in discussion, he went into the house with Jitchi, while Asket and I roamed through the meadows chatting and enjoying the glorious nature. More than 5 hours passed before we returned again and discovered Jackie and Jitchi talking shop.
Yechieli is very clever. I have given him my electric fence energizer and have also drawn up plans for him to set up a dynamo which he can drive with a windmill or a water wheel. Now he wants to set up an electric security device for the door of his house with it because people constantly bother him.
With ringing laughter.
That could indeed become quite mirthful. If he really does that, then he will go down in history as a mysterious magician. Indeed, he is already called that now.
I will study the old books of French history. Perhaps I will actually find my electric fence energizer in them as a door guard and the simple torch as some sort of dim magic lamp. Rabbi Yechieli's work of the devil. I am excited. But now I still want to put a question to you, Asket. Yechieli has given me some things which I would like to take back into our time because they would with certainty have a very high antique value there. Can I take the things back with me?
If you want to, naturally. But the value of the things would not be great for your time, and indeed, because the gifts from Yechieli are clearly from his epoch, from the 13th century, yet, in your time, will not be older. We require only a tiny split second to go from this epoch back to your time, during which everything in my ship and these things will also only age by just this time. If Yechieli's gifts are to become antiques, then you must bury them somewhere or deposit them in some other way, and arrange for them to endure in the normal time span of centuries, so they then really age. With our ship, if I may so speak, we bridge space and time by way of a transmission through parabolic space, whereby space and time become finite and shrink to a denominator of a spilt second. That means that we can, in this way, bridge time spans of billions of years in a tiny split second without becoming older than that specific split second.
The mathematics are too high for me.
It is an equation.
I understand that even less, but it really does not matter. It is really a shame about the beautiful gifts.
Your materialism again, my son, eh?
Asket's laugh rings out. Obviously, she finds my speech funny.
You reveal a healthy humor. But let us go now, because we still want to change to another time today. We did as she ordered. Some half-hour later, the ship again sped with us into the sky. Then, for a short split second, I again felt that I simply no longer was.
Addendum. An electric lamp at the time of St. Ludwig, page 337 of Plejadisch Plejarenische Kontaktberichte. Gespräche, Block 1. Excerpt from the book Fantastic Past, pages 97 to 98. Author, Robert Charroux, NSB. Provided by Mrs.
Several chroniclers of the 13th century testify, however, that Jacquieli, a French rabbi, to whom St. Ludwig paid great respect due to his high degree of learning, knew the secret of a shining lamp which lit up by itself. This lamp burned without oil and without a wick, and the magician sometimes put it at his window at night, which filled his contemporaries with fear, although he enjoyed high standing with the king and was even his advisor. Eliphas Levi wrote in his History of Magic on page 206, "Everything which one can say about this lamp and its magical power of illumination provides evidence that Jacquieli had discovered electricity or, at least, knew the primary possibilities for its application, because this knowledge, which is just as old as magic itself, was passed down from generation to generation as one of the keys to the higher initiations." Indisputably, Jacquieli was an initiate. Did the secret of his lamp arise from his knowledge of electricity? According to the chroniclers, the rabbi had a very personal way of spoiling the fun of undesired guests, i.e., his enemies, who knocked on his door. He touched a nail which had been hammered into the wall of his room, and immediately a bluish crackling spark sprang out of it. Woe to anyone who touched the iron door knocker at that moment. He bent over with pain, howled loudly as if the earth was going to swallow him, and took off one day, wrote Eliphas Levi, murmuring threateningly at the rabbi's door, pressed a crowd of people who held each other firmly by the arms in order to protect themselves from the shaking and the supposed earthquake. The boldest furiously activated the knocker. Then Jacquieli touched his nail. At the same moment the attackers rolled, one over the other, and fled and screamed as if they had been burnt. They later asserted they had felt how the earth opened under them, and they sank up to the knees. They did not know how they had come out of it. But there was no way in the world they would return again to knock at the wizard's door. So by means of the terror that he spread, Jacquieli secured his peace. One can really only explain that this way. Jacquieli had invented the electric lamp, or reinvented it, and by pressing on a button sent electrical currents into the iron door knocker. Undoubtedly the rabbi was in possession of a scientific secret, but he did not consider it opportune to betray it to the people of the 13th century.